Thank you, and welcome to today's Candidate Forum, brought to you in partnership with City Club of Central Oregon and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, Klamath County, and Hood River, two organizations that are passionately nonpartisan and whose purpose today is to engage and inform Oregon voters for the general election. Today, we are hosting the candidates for U.S. Representative 2nd District. My name is Harrison Womack, proud City Club board member, and I'm honored to serve as today's moderator. First, I'd like to give a quick shout out to City Club's annual sponsors, Brooks Resources and St. Charles Health System. Without their support, we would not be able to bring you today's program. Today's live stream is also made possible by Connect Central Oregon, a nonprofit launched with the assistance of the OSU Cascades Innovation Collab. Our sponsors for the entire series of candidate forums are the Deschutes Public Library and Buchanan Schmid LLC. We are grateful for their support, and if we were meeting in person, I would ask for a round of applause. Since we're not, I'll assume you're giving them a standing ovation. If you're interested in supporting City Club or the League of Women Voters, please check out our websites to get more information. Our candidate forums are conducted according to the League of Women Voters guidelines. All candidates filed in their race are invited to participate in our forums, and we hope to present voters with all participants. In the interest of fairness, we do not let an RSVP of regrets cancel a forum. While we communicated with Cliff Bentz' office several times, their decision was to not participate in this particular forum. We understand there are many demands for Mr. Bentz' time, and we appreciate the consideration we were given. Today's program will be with the remaining candidate, Alex Spenser. Thank you to Alex for participating in today's forum. We appreciate the gravity of committing to run for office, and our goal is to provide an opportunity for a fair and civil discourse. We start with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening remarks. Then we will move on to additional questions, and each candidate will again have 2 minutes to answer. At the end, each candidate may give a 2-minute closing statement. So let's get started. I want to introduce our candidate today, Alex Spenser. Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for office?
Hi, I'm Alex Spenser, and I want to be your voice in Congress. First of all, I want to thank the City Club and the League of Women Voters for inviting me here today and for this wonderful platform. And I want to say how disappointed I am that Mr. Bentz isn't joining us today, and I hope he's well. It's an interesting thing to do this, to run for office. And I want you to know that one of the reasons I'm doing this is, well, the way I'm looking at this is as a very long, very expensive, very fun job interview. While I do have a designated competitor, I also want you to hire me to do the job because you know that I am the best person to do the job, to do the work that needs to be done, and that I will be your voice in Congress, and I will show up. I will stay in the room and make sure that the hard work of communication is attended to. So again, thank you so very much for having me, and I look forward to your questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that introduction. So our first question, just want to hear, what are your qualifications and experience for this position?
Well, my background is as diverse as CD2, and the fact that I have lived a life of diversity, that I've learned how to excel in many different ways, most importantly as a single mom, it brings something to the table that we certainly have yet to see in this seat. I will be the very first woman to hold the seat in Congressional District 2, and I'm so very grateful for everyone's support. I move through my life through communication. I'm a motivational speaker. I am someone who is a mediator. I am a problem solver. I know what it takes to live a life with a very little and gain so much more through the creative production of just being in the world. I am very grateful for this opportunity. It is it is shown by my nomination that I have what it takes to speak to the voters, to really do that hard work of communication, to really bring people together and hold more than one idea at a time. I think it's so very important in this time to be that person who's willing to stand up and speak for everyone. I am the voice of the Republicans, the Democrats, the progressives, the liberals, the libertarians, and everybody in between. That's who I am. That is what I bring to the table, and it's very important that that's the kind of leadership that goes to Washington.
Excellent, thank you. So as you're considering this race, what are the most important issues for this congressional district that you would advocate for as its representative?
Well, we have been thrust with this confluence of energies. We have had to deal with a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic that has hit Oregon just as it's hit everywhere else. People have lost their jobs, lost their health care along with their jobs. We have had to endure wildfire in cities that have just been decimated, and we're still coming to an understanding of what kind of disaster this is, and getting ready for the next wave of wildfires as well as the next wave of the pandemic. What we are all coming to realize is that those things that were once thought of as idealistic are now pragmatic. We need universal health care. We need a universal basic income, and we need a universal right to housing. It is so incredibly important that we take care of these very important ideals and make them practical and make sure that everyone in America is cared for. When we lost jobs, those people who had jobs and had their health care tied to those jobs lost their health care at the same time. We're realizing as a nation, as a state, that there are better ways to run a healthcare system. And it is time that we look at those ways and really look at better avenues towards healthcare, towards caring for people. And if we don't take care of folks now, we are looking at homelessness that will rival the Great Depression. And we're better than that. We deserve a government that cares for the people of America. And that's what I'm about.
Awesome. Thank you. So as you mentioned those issues, do you see any of those as being more heightened for Oregon voters? You kind of mentioned some national issues, obviously universal health care, taking care of wildfire management. But what do you see as like the main issue on Oregon voters' hearts and minds that you want to take care of?
The very most important thing is ending the divisiveness in Congress. When I was able to travel widely and chat with people before this COVID-19 revolution was thrust upon us, every person said to me, the most important thing is to end the divisiveness. People are tired of not being able to talk to their neighbors. They're tired of not being able to have a conversation with their Uncle Fred. And it's time that we come together. We really tore at the fabric of democracy when we stopped talking about religion and politics across the dinner table. And we further pulled at those fraying threads when we decided it was okay to agree to disagree. It is time that we bring communication to the forefront, that we really end the divisiveness that is plaguing Congress and that is plaguing our nation. If we bring communicators into Congress, if we create a committee for congressional communication where members can come and really hold more than one idea at a time, really work through the issues to the betterment of all of the American society, then we will be able to solve the divisiveness all over America, and especially here in Oregon. We have had protests because Black Lives Matter. We've had wildfires that have been hindered by the Republicans' walkout because they missed their budget. We have to start taking care of people and end the suffering that we're seeing everywhere.
Thank you. So you mentioned ending the divisiveness in Congress. So I guess a follow-up question to that is when a side has a supermajority and almost has no reason to listen to the other side, how would you combat that? Where we see it, on a state level, it's one party, and in different houses, it flips party. So how would you address that, where a party doesn't need the voice of the other party to still get legislation passed? What would you do in that case?
We need people who understand what communication is. We need people who understand how to meet someone where they are so that there can be actual communication about an issue. When the Republicans walked out of the Oregon government, they left so many things on the table that have been detrimental. And even had they lost that issue, they needed to stay in the room and have the conversations. If we look at our Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just passed, and we will miss her dearly, we look at her, and her most fervent efforts were in the dissenting opinion to sway folks further down the line so that we come to a greater understanding of what needs to be in the world. And that's what they missed. They missed the ability to have their voice heard for the record, to have their understandings be a part of that record so that folks could go back and say, oh, this is what they meant when they said that, and really be a part of the communication. When you walk out of the room, you leave so much on the table, and they did not have the forethought to realize all of the other legislation that wouldn't go forward. The wildfire budget is paramount. In the emergency session, they were only able to get $3.2 million passed when they had asked for $52 to $132 million for the wildfire season of 2020. We have firefighters out there risking their lives. The very least we could have done was make sure that they had the money they needed to thrive.
Well, thank you for that answer. So some questions here too. How would you, if you were elected, how would you balance the wishes of your constituents with the wishes of your financial backers?
Well, the constituents come first. I am the voice of the people of Oregon. What matters to them is what needs to matter to me, and that is where my energy will go. While I won't say I won't ever take money from big corporations, it's going to depend on the corporation. And I want everyone to understand my answer there. It's because I need to be able to play on the same field as everyone else. Now, if I am the head of a committee that regulates, say, broadcasting, and if I take money from broadcasters, then there's a problem, because that's a huge conflict of interest, because the people I'm supposed to be regulating, I'm taking money from. Now, I would never in a million years do that to the people of Oregon or to the people of America. It's about making sure we do the best possible take the best possible care of the American people we can. We are in a crisis. We're in a crisis of conscience. We're in a crisis of climate. We're in a crisis of it's so big, it's so profound, and we need to make sure we take the profit out of people's suffering wherever we see it, and we need to move forward with policies and incentives and real legislation that helps people rather than continues to push them down into the ground. It's time It's time we take the knee off of the American neck.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Do you consider climate change to be a threat? And if so, what steps do you expect to support to address it?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, climate change is a threat. Not only is it a threat to Oregon, as we're seeing in these massive wildfires, it is also a threat to the United States and to the world. Now, it's been just about a year since we pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. And we are seeing the reflection of that in these wildfires. We are part of a global society, and what we do matters. The actions we take matter. The actions we take when we're in the room matter. When we walk out and leave that kind of legislation on the table, it matters. We need to be sure to understand that this is a global issue, that climate is a global issue, and common sense immigration, common sense migration. We need to make sure we create a path of citizenship for those folks who are here, who are working, who are paying taxes here in America, have a path to citizenship that is unencumbered by bureaucratic nonsense. We also need to make sure that climate refugees moving north from the southern reaches of the Americas have a place to come in America. And we not only do we need to be refuge for these people and that we need to provide them a path to citizenship, we need to be sure that we understand the fact that our baby boomers, they are retiring, they're graying out, they're getting older, and we need folks to take their jobs. We need folks to care for them. And so we need migration. We need more people in America to do these jobs, to really support the American ideal. And we need to remember that we can be a beacon of hope for the world if we choose to be so.
Nice. Thank you for that answer. Eastern Oregon is largely rural and encompasses natural resources such as public lands that are used for forestry and grazing, as well as tourism and environmental recovery. What plan would you support that balances these needs for all residents?
That's really interesting, because when you were asking, I went to my rail plan, because what my rail plan would do would be to connect Klamath Falls to Ashland, Bend to Eugene, Hood River to Portland. Not only would it connect the east to the west, it would also provide a relief valve in the event of a catastrophic seismic event of the Cascadia subduction zone. We would also extend those rail lines, and we're talking about elevated high-speed rail, extend the rail lines all the way around Oregon so that we can enjoy these wonderful spaces out in Eastern Oregon as lands of tourism, as places to visit and see the unspoiled, beautiful nature that we have here in Oregon. I think that bringing tourism dollars, bringing people to witness what it is we have to offer here in Oregon is just so very important. And I've thought about this question a lot. I have a personal affinity for the idea of taking care of land so consciously, because I was the campground host out at the Lava Beds National Monument. And monument status means you don't touch anything. You leave everything exactly where it is. If you see a beer can, you got to mark its GPS location and tell them where it is, because that beer can, man, that is an archaeological factor. So the problem with that is we can't have the other things that we want to do. We can't allow hunting and fishing and all of that. And so that's why national park status for so many of these areas would be a great thing.
Nice. So Oregon is one of 5 states that allow unlimited campaign contributions. Do you support campaign contribution limits? and full disclosure, and all that political advertisements list their identities, providing the largest amounts for them, and items like that?
I believe that we need to level the playing field. Okay, we need to make it so that campaign finance is something that is available to everyone, and that, so the idea of limits, yes, I think that there need to be limits to donations, certainly, and we need to know who the big money donors are. We also need to limit the amount of funds that a specific individual can give to their own campaign. I think that it's important that a wealthy person doesn't have a better chance of becoming, oh, I don't know, a member of Congress than someone who's not wealthy. And I think it's very, very important to have representatives who represent all of the people rather than just the wealthiest people. If you are wealthy, you're more likely to be well connected and have those tendrils into big business who can give in Oregon unlimited dollars. And I think that that needs to be limited. I think that it's really time that we have that level playing field. Make sure that corporate interests are not the interests that get people voted in, that gain the votes of actual people. It's so very, very important. And money has been such a big part of the campaigning. And I don't know if you know this, but I have asked folks to donate to relief for the coronavirus first before they donate to my campaign, because I think that it's important that people, have a place to sleep tonight and that they're getting fed. So I look at money and campaigning in a very different way than others might.
Nice. Well, thank you. So you mentioned the coronavirus, and obviously we've been dealing with this this whole year, it seems. What do you think the federal priority should be for managing the economic impacts of COVID-19?
Well, I think that this next bill that comes through needs to relief package, right? Needs to take into consideration the time it's taken for them to come to an agreement in Washington about what they're going to give. So we need to have a retroactive payment of that $1,200 for every month that's passed since that first $1,200 has been given to folks. And then we also need a provision that continues that, because we are about to come to an end of the moratorium for people being evicted from their homes. And that is going to cause such grief, such families are going to be on the streets if they don't have that buffer. They've lost their jobs, right? They don't have, and even if they have a job, it doesn't necessarily come with the same income it came with in the first place, especially for people who are in the middle, in the center of earning. And we need to ensure that people get to stay in their homes. And the way to do that is to make sure that they have the money in order to pay their back rent that they haven't been able to pay because they've been out of work. It just makes sense. And then we need those payments to continue for the foreseeable future until we know everyone is cared for, everyone is safe, and everyone is gainfully employed. And we need to look at what that means, because there are folks now who have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and that's not okay. That is one place that having universal health care will really support businesses, especially small businesses, so that burden of health care will be removed from their employees.
Yeah, so you mentioned these financial incentives to help people that are in a tough spot. And I think that's, it's extremely important that we care for those that are hurting. How would you also address the tendency of people to kind of work the system. So, you know, they're making more money on unemployment than they were when they were working. How would you address that and incentivize people to actually continue to work versus just continue to live on the state?
Okay, so if you're making more money on unemployment, you're not making enough money in the first place, right? We need to raise the minimum wage. We need to start at $15 an hour, if not 25, and make sure that people are making a living wage. It is very, very difficult to live on a minimum wage job. Very, very, very difficult. And that's why people have to have more than one minimum wage job. And we no longer have full-time employment. Everybody is hired in a part-time basis so that employers can get around having to pay more incentives to their employees for being there. So we need full-time gainful employment that allows people to have a life, that allows people to really enjoy the liberties that are afforded by being an American citizen. When you have folks just working to pay the bills, you have a bunch of folks who are unhappy, whose lives are unfulfilled, and that isn't the American dream. There have been studies done about a universal basic income where folks have been given an income every month, and what they use that income for is rent and food and the things that are most important in their lives. This isn't a frivolous thing. People want to take care of their families. People want to take care of themselves, and they just don't have the money to do it. And we also need to remember all of the low wage earners in America, all of that money goes straight back into our economy. And that can only be a boon for society.
Nice. So as we're talking about finances and paying for the economic impacts of COVID-19, and you mentioned a rail that goes to, would help connect Central Oregon. So this brings up the question, how do we deal with the federal deficit that we're dealing with? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's time that, especially now, the folks that are making money during COVID-19, the folks that are making more money than they were making before, we need to make sure that they're paying their fair share of taxes. We need to bring back the tax system that makes everyone accountable. We could easily put a 10-cent per transaction fee or tax on Wall Street. So every transaction that you make towards making more money in capital gains, those things should be taxed. We also need to tax capital gains as if they are income, because they're income. And we need to make sure that everyone is cared for. Again, I just can't stress how important that is. When we're talking about the deficit, when we're talking about the Army and folks that are on food stamps and in the Army at the same time, that's a problem. We give so much money to the armed forces. The first thing they need to be doing is taking care of, the armed forces, those people that are putting their lives on the line for our well-being. We need to make sure they're paid, and that they're paid well, because they're giving their lives for us, in service to us. And that, if we're going to give all of that money to military, let's make sure the military is cared for. And let's make a few less bombs, and let's pay down the debt with that.
Nice. Well, thank you for that answer. So as we're talking, the military, obviously we're engaged in a lot of conflicts. Do you have any views on that, or anything that you would bring about with our military serving overseas, or thoughts on that?
Well, again, it's about taking the profit out of people's suffering wherever we see it.
Mm.
I think that it's important to make sure that when we send folks overseas, when we send our troops, that we need to be cognizant that they are our most valuable commodity, and we need to take care of them. And we need to take care of the places that we go to and take over, right? And we need to make those places whole before we completely withdraw. If we go, we need to make sure we're going for the right reasons, make sure that we're going to care for people, make sure that we're going to make people's lives better. We are America. We need to be seen as a beacon of hope for the rest of the world, and we can be that. We can be that. I think that we need to look at the American military as peacemakers rather than warmongers. And we have, there has to be give and take, right? I mean, if our troops are attacked, yes, of course we have to attack back. If we are attacked, yes, we have to attack back. And yet, we need to make sure that we have intelligence behind these choices, that we know that the person in charge of sending our troops is reliable, is trustworthy, it has integrity. And we're lacking a lot of that right now. And it's time that we hold the people accountable for sending our folks overseas when they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. So as we're talking about foreign involvement, what do you consider to be the key foreign policy issue, and what changes, if any, are needed in our foreign policy?
The key foreign policy issue is tariffs, without a doubt, without a question, bar none. We have gotten into a tariff war with China, and that has affected Oregonians to just a huge extent. I have a woman that works with my campaign. She's amazing, and she runs several hotels, and she went to order lamps the other day for the hotel rooms, and she was going to be charged like $700 in tariffs for 50 lamps. It was just absolutely incredible. And even more so, I think, is the fact that our cherries are going over, and there's a 60% tariff on the cherries. And we have to, trade is everything. Trade is the basis of peace on earth. The more we trade, the more we understand each other's culture, the more we accept each other, the stronger we're going to be. And it really, really is time to let go of the pettiness and embrace trade all throughout the world with America, so that we can have that exchange and have an understanding and have a way to support everyone. And we have to look at the fact that we live in a global society. And again, all of our actions matter to everyone. We're all connected. You don't have to look further than physics and the systems theory to know that our connection is profound and universal. And it is time that we embrace that rather than push against it.
Nice, thank you. So of the issues, we're gonna ask one more general question, and then we've got some specific issue questions that we'll get into. So of the issues facing Congress this year, which would you prioritize, and what actions do you want Congress to take next year or when you were elected?
Okay, yes, that is broad. Of the issues that are facing Congress this year, well, I think that the most important issue is that there is a bill on the table right now that would ensure equality. It's the Equality Act for everyone, and it has passed the House. It needs only pass the Senate to give everyone equal rights in America and equal rights to everything. And I think that that is paramount. That is something that has to happen yesterday, and it could have happened yesterday. And we need to look at legislation around our police forces, making sure that they are forces of peace rather than forces of escalation. We need to make sure that we can find a way to hold bad cops accountable while holding good cops in our forever esteem. It is such a difficult job, and everything is escalated. Concealed carry makes it so that they think that we all have a gun, and rightly so. And we have to find a way to balance those things and those energies. Oh, what else is going on in Congress? It's such a broad stroke to make. Mm-hmm. And equality is at the forefront, and we need to make sure that when we're looking at everything, we look at where we are right now, starting now, the way things are today, whether it be timber or the police or equality, anything else. And we just need to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Awesome. So you mentioned police reform and accountability, but maintaining, good cops is still good. What else would you add to that police reform agenda?
Well, I find it's very important to make sure that we de-escalate the militarization of the police forces. Now, I understand the reason for it. So what's happened is there's all of this surplus military equipment, and they can get it for a song, right? And so in fact, if you look on my website, I got to spend some time with a marshal out in Merrill, and he taught me how to shoot a gun, which was really awesome. And those, he was talking about the, his side of it and my side of it are different. But by the end of the conversation, we were both understanding each other, and it was a wonderful, wonderful communication. And even the target I was shooting at was military surplus, and they've got tons of them apparently. And what we need to do is take the military garb out of our streets. It just serves to scare people. We need a police force that is trained in de-escalation. We need a police force that is trained in acceptance training rather than tolerance training. And that may seem like a nitpicky little nuance, but when you think about it, I don't know anyone that wants to be tolerated. We need to find a way to accept everyone. And the way to do that is through understanding everyone, where they come from, what their heritage is, how they celebrated Christmas or didn't celebrate Christmas, and what is, what's important to them. The more we know each other, the more vulnerable we are with each other, the closer we're going to be. And I think that acceptance training is imperative in our police forces to make everyone, a little more equal.
Nice. Well, thank you. So you brought this up in your last statement on using weapons. So any restrictions on gun availability tend to be seen by some as against the Second Amendment. Do you support any changes in the current laws and the current landscape on gun ownership?
We need to make sure that we reinstate the assault weapons ban. Now, there's this little diatribe that goes on. You know, oh, when you're talking about assault weapons and semi-assault rifles, they're completely different, right? And the difference is an assault weapon shoots, you know, you have to pull the trigger every time, or a semi-assault rifle, you have to pull the trigger every time, and you can only get 60 shots out at a time. That's nothing, right? Well, it may be nothing when you're at a firing range and there's a target ahead of you and you just want to you know, get them out as fast as possible. But when we're talking about an active shooter situation, you know, that's 60 concert goers. That's 60 children in school. We need to limit assault weapons. We need to limit magazines. It's, you know, it's time we look at this as common sense. Why limit the magazine? Because anything over 10 is too much. We need that time. Law enforcement needs those precious seconds that it takes to remove a cartridge and put the cartridge back in, so that that shooter can be taken out, so that that shooter can be disarmed, so that that shooter can stop killing people. It's too important an issue. And Second Amendment rights, we have to look at the whole Second Amendment. Well-regulated militia, that's not 25 people getting together and, you know, having a good time over the weekend. That is a well-organized, regulated militia like the armed forces, which we've got. We have armed forces. We've got everybody. We have enough people with enough guns. We don't need to have them on our streets as well.
Nice. Well, thank you for answering that. So, do you support federal funding for Planned Parenthood and rights to privacy in healthcare decisions?
Of course. Federal funding for Planned Parenthood. We have to remember that there is no federal funding for abortion services. There is an amendment that says, no, we cannot have federal funding for abortions. And we haven't for a very, 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 very long time. What defunding Planned Parenthood does is make it so that women's health care choices are fewer, and so that they're not getting the care that they need and that they deserve. It's time that we take care of women. It's time that we take care of everybody. And women's rights, you know, are human rights. The way I look at this is I look at autonomy, right? I think that women's reproductive rights, the ability to die with dignity, all of these things are the same. We have to allow people to make choices for themselves between them and their physician, between them and their healthcare provider and their family. It's none of my business what you do with your body. And we do need privacy. We do need to make sure that organizations like Planned Parenthood that are just out there to support women and women's health care and reproductive health care, we need those things funded. We need to make sure that everyone gets, everyone who needs it has reproductive choices. If you prevent a pregnancy, then there is no option for abortion. I mean, it's very, very, very common sense. It's very simple. We need to take care of everyone, including and especially our women and girls, because they are the light of our future.
Thanks for answering that. So speaking of autonomy, the city of Portland recently passed a ban on facial recognition software used in public spaces by public entities and then also in public spaces. So what's your perspective on that, and would you consider something similar on a federal level?
Yes, I think we need to remember that it's so important that we keep what privacy we can, and we need to be as far ahead of the curve as we can in the new technologies that are coming forward. Facial recognition software, you know, we need, I'm living a very public life, right? Everyone knows who I am now. And I chose that. I chose to be in this position. And the person walking down the street going to Starbucks needs to be able to hold on to their anonymity. They need to be able to have their privacy and live their lives without the state or some company, some, you know, some way to collect more information, right? We need to make sure that everyone is cared for. And we need to take the profit out of people suffering wherever we see it. And I say that people are suffering from this identity crisis because our identities are put on the line every single day. Every time we do something like this, you know, our voice patterns can be recorded and recognized. Our faces, everything that we do is being watched. And I think that we need to slow it down. You know, I mean, it may end up being inevitable. And for right now, absolutely, I support those laws. It is incredibly important to make it so that there is a line between keeping your business secure with a security camera and knowing who is walking down the street every single day.
Nice. And last specific issue question, do you support a national vote by mail act, and why or why not?
I absolutely support a national vote by mail act. Representative Blumenauer has put one forth that, I don't know, it's exactly like the one we use, and thank goodness he has. And it's time that everyone vote the way Oregonians vote. It is so very important. It's one of the reasons I live in Oregon. The ability to vote in that way, and I voted all around the nation, and to be able to, you know, wake up one Sunday morning and be in my pajamas and open up the voter pamphlet and be able to vote with calm and knowledge and know that all I have to do is take that ballot, put it in the drop box, and it's done, and my vote will be counted. I think that it is imperative that we have a national vote by mail system. And the motor voter law is also part of this bill that's in Congress right now. We need that as well. We need all of the people engaged and having the ability to vote. Everyone gets a ballot in their mailbox. And just as an aside, these wildfires have taken down a lot of mailboxes, and we need to Shemaiah Fagan has actually come forth with a lot of really great ideas supporting people being able to still get their ballots and cast their ballots. So going online, changing your address to general mail of the post office, that is working in the moment. So make sure that you send it to general mail in Medford if you are somewhere that your post office is gone. So it's incredibly important that we make sure that everyone has the right to vote, and that that everyone's vote is counted.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering a myriad of questions. And obviously we're in a political climate, like you said, that's very divisive. There's so many issues that people ultimately they care deeply about, and they often care on different sides of the issue. So with this crazy political, economic, social, and environmental situation that we find ourselves in, what gives you hope?
The realization that we're so close together. We think that, you know, our idealistic behavior is so apart from each other, but it's not. We all want the same thing. We all want clean, cold, healthy water for our children. We all want clean air to breathe. We all want an environment that is sustainable and able to make it through to the next generation and the next and the next and the next. We all want the same things for our livelihoods and for our family. We want energy that can sustain our work and our play. We want to make sure that it's clean and coming from a place that's not harming our amazing atmosphere that is so very, very delicate. We need to be sure that we do have the ability to hold more than one idea at a time, and we do. And like I said, I talk to a lot of people all around Oregon, and Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. I talk to everyone. I want to talk to everyone. I want to know. I want to be everyone's voice in Congress. My events are always open to everyone. My speeches are for everyone. And what gives me hope are the phone calls I get from Republicans saying, you know, I don't like what's going on the other side. How can I best support you in your campaign? That gives me hope, that people recognize that there is a way to come together, that there is a way to be peace in America today. And it matters so much who you vote for, and every vote matters.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that's the end of our regular questions. And so just want to open it up for you for 2 minutes. Do you have any closing comments that you want people to know as we end this?
Well, I just want to thank you again so much for this opportunity. And again, I want to wish Mr. Bentz well. I hope he is well. And I want you to know that I will be your voice in Congress. I will listen. I am here to listen to you. Every Thursday, since January, I've held a virtual town hall, and you are welcome. You're welcome to come and chat with me and ask me anything you want. My phone number is also on my website, Spenser2020.com. And please go there and learn more about me, and understand the options, and remember that your vote is anonymous. For those wonderful Republicans who see that it's time that we elect a peacemaker, that's what we need. We need folks who are willing to do the hard work, to step up, to step outside the box, and really understand that it is time we come together. It is time we become a United States of America. You know, we've been protesting because Black Lives Matter. We care about the police because the police are so very important to all of us. And when we come together, when we understand that we need to take the profit out of people's suffering, that everyone needs health care, that everyone needs income, that everyone needs and deserves a place to live, a place that they can be proud to live in, a place that they can own as their very own. It's time. It's time. It's time we take care of folks. It's time to relieve debt of people who have gone to college and had to pay for it through loans. It's time to take care of everyone. And I am Alex Spenser, and I will be your voice in Congress.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Alex. Really appreciate you participating in today's forums. Also want to extend a thank you to the League of Women Voters for partnering with City Club to get this information out. Remember, if you've enjoyed today's forum and would like to help cover the costs, please consider making a donation to City Club on their website at cityclubco.org. If you are interested in becoming a member or making a contribution to the League of Women Voters, please contact the League through their website at www.LWVDeschutes.org. Thanks to our candidate forum series sponsors, the Deschutes Public Library and Buchanan Schmid LLC. The next candidate forum will be the Redmond City Council and will air Thursday at 7 p.m. Please be sure to watch. Thank you for your interest and for keeping democracy alive. This was pre-recorded earlier today.